Hello everyone, welcome to the Geometry Best Practice presentation. So this session is really about giving you an introduction to some of the concepts of open roads geometry and cover some of the commonly asked questions that we get. So it's really looking at giving something across the board to everybody, from a novice user through to an expert user. There are lots more reference sessions that drill down into a lot more detail, so I'd encourage you to go and look on the Learn server and search those out in relation to all things geometry. So the agenda for this presentation will give a bit of an introduction, a little bit of a history and background behind the open roads geometry, some getting started tips, commonly asked questions. We'll drill down into a few things that just people when they're starting out and actually as they get more experience tend to question. So some of the characteristics of open roads, well, what we like to think of is that the open roads geometry provides intelligence over just normal CAD drafted graphics. It's created with rules and relationships or associations that provide what we like to call design intent, and it really provides us with intelligent updating. It captures the decisions that you've put into your design and relationships that you build in. This whole ethos behind the open roads geometry is that it's about an interactive and a more dynamic user experience, and this comes through, and we'll see as we go through, in terms of how we manipulate and the handlers, as we call them, the manipulator blobs. We have context sensitive toolbars that fly out and will restructure depending on what you're selecting, in-place text editing, and the ability to drive purely from the cursor or using the panel. So it allows a blend between an experienced and a novice user, and your methodology for using the environment will change as you become more experienced. And obviously the open roads geometry supports those native tools, the legacy product tools of ALG, GPK and .fill file, both in and importing up into open roads and persisting back for downstream activities that you might need to work on. So what I wanted to look at really here was just show you an old video actually that demonstrates the capability that came in with Select Series 2 geometry, so the predecessor to open roads geometry. And this was the starting point really, where we started to see the dynamic manipulation, the propagation of rules and relationships, the geometry snaps, and the dynamic manipulation of those snaps. And as we can see here, sliding the center line along and creating a new relationship. All of the children off that center line then adjust and update. So as we change that geometry, the rules and relationships that we've built in all heal as well. And here another example, and this is obviously a lot more complicated situation with the geometry, where there's a lot more relationships that it's having to manage. So as we're manipulating it and dynamically adjusting it and evaluating different options, that geometry has to heal. The rules will have to propagate from the parent down through the children and propagate out. And so that's really the starting point for the open roads geometry. But this is 2D. So where have we come to with Select Series 3 and open roads geometry? So let's take a look.
Civil geometry and open roads, what's it all about? What better way to demonstrate it than with some of its dynamic modelling capability and updating? And ultimately this is what we're looking at here. We can see the preview, the dynamic capability, the propagation, the updating of rules as we accept the move and move it into the new location for whatever design constraint we need to build into this, be it adjusting the angle, the entry angle, going for a perpendicular access road, whatever. The geometry propagates through the rule management system and updates. Similarly, if we want to build in and make a change, we can obviously make a change on dynamically and adjust geometry. And again, rule propagation kicks in and updates that geometry and widens out. But if we want to make a more complicated change and perhaps come in and add, say, a head taper, we can make modifications to this base geometry, and those rules again propagate through and update through the model and cause intelligent updating, because we capture what we call the design intent within the geometry and propagate that throughout the surfaces, throughout the geometry, and into corridors, and integrate throughout the entire geometric model. And this really encapsulates what the dynamic capability of open roads and the geometry rules really provides.